So God sent more New Testament letters here than anywhere else. 12. One of these letters from Revelation, so that's the first book that came to this area. Peter's 2 epistles, 2 Peter and 1 Peter, so now that's number 2 and 3, were sent directly to this area. Paul's letter to the Galatians, did you see that on the map? Galatia came here. The Ephesians came here. Colossians came here. That's 4, 5, and 6. Plus 1st, 2nd Timothy. Timothy was the pastor of Ephesus, and 1st, 2nd Timothy came to him in this area. And those people heard him saying, I got a letter from God through the Apostle Paul. And they heard it. Plus John's, by the way, how many epistles did John write? There we go. So John's 3 epistles, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, came here to these people. And finally, the very first letter that came was the first New Testament epistle. What's that? What was the first New Testament letter written? James. James wrote to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, and the 12 tribes of Israel were scattered all across Asia Minor for many reasons. They were business people, and through persecution, they were driven out of the Holy Land. And so 12 letters came here. Now, here we go. Look at verse 20, the first part. It says, nevertheless. Remember, I showed you all the 7 elements. Every letter has, the introduction, the name of Christ, the commendations, and then look at this, nevertheless. I have a few things against you, because you allow that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce my servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. Boy, was she popular. She came into the church and says, you know what, we've got this new revelation. What God says is okay to live together before you're married, so don't even fret about that. And that's not all. You can live with anybody you want, and you can get involved in the temples of the idols' feasts where the food is cheaper and where there's all this fun. And you can just, look what it says. She came into the church and started teaching, saying, I'm getting a message from God, I'm a prophetess. And she taught and seduced my servants, that's what God calls us, Christians, to commit sexual immorality and to eat things sacrificed to idols. Wow. Revelation 2:20. Jesus knows who's influencing our lives. He knew these people were being influenced by Jezebel. Whether they are challenging us to sanctification. By the way, what does sanctification mean? It's a measure of our usefulness to God. A lot of these words are multisyllabic words that we just say, and we don't sometimes try and have a meaning for them that we can hold on to. Sanctification is how useful I am to God. You know what God says? 1 Thessalonians 5:23, and the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray, God, this is Paul writing, I pray, God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless to the coming of Christ. What Paul said is, God wants to sanctify every part of us, our mind, our words, our thoughts, our feelings, our deeds. What does he want to do with them? A lot of people think sanctification means that, you kind of scowl all the time and you say, oh, it's not funny. I'm very serious about the Lord. That is not sanctification. Sanctification is how useful you are to God. Bonnie and I one time, I'll tell you that in a few days, we were eating breakfast somewhere, and we were newlyweds and just started at Grace Community Church, and we were newlyweds, and as newlyweds, I couldn't have enough time with her, and so every morning at breakfast downtown Los Angeles, I would read the Bible with her, and we'd sit there over breakfast reading back and forth in the Bible between chews. And, and when I could, I'd slip my hand across the table and hold her hand if I wasn't holding the fork. And our waiter would look at us. And every morning, because we ate there every day, it was 99 cents. It's fun to be old because you can remember when everything was a deal. And it was 99 cents. And did you know that waiter ended up asking us about the Lord? You see, it is good. It is good to reflect Christ. And people see it, and we're useful to God. Or are they feeding our flesh? Notice the words in this verse, seduce, commit, eat. Things which grieve and quench. By the way, what happens when a born-again Christian who has become the very temple of God thinks or does sinful things. What does it do to the person that lives inside the temple? Two things: grieves and quenches. All of you have been grieved. I assume all of you have been quenched. Quenched means to throw water on a flame and go, campfire, throw the bucket of water on it, goes, poof. It makes a mess, like mud. That's what sin does inside of us to the Spirit of God, quenches him. Well, let's talk about this city, by the way. William Ramsay, the famed 19th century archaeologist, wrote this. He excavated this city. He said, revelry, license, intoxication marked the pagan religious societies, the trade guilds, where the inhabitants of Thyatira dined on couches surrounded by troops of unclothed, dancing, and singing slaves. I told you on the first lesson, I think, about there are 8 types of slaves in the Roman Empire. Well, there was a type that were the dancing, singing, undressed, I don't know what in our culture they would be called, prostitutes, pole dancers, I don't know what. But they were slaves that were hired to come through men reclining on couches, eating meals, and they would pour more alcohol into their cups, and they would dance around with no clothes on. That's what the archaeologists found characterized the business gatherings of Thyatira. Sin, look what I wrote. Sin was everywhere present and powerfully alluring. And what one ancient non-Christian, Herodotus, the father of history, do you know what he said these cultures of this part of the world were like? He said they were like living in a cesspool. Do you know what a cesspool is? A septic tank? How about a sewer system? How about, where everything goes that you flush from the toilet? It would be like living with the pipe dumping out on you. Very hard to not get it on you and in you. And that's how they lived. So what were they supposed to do? Well, let's read one thing these people already knew before Jesus wrote to them. It's in 1 Peter 2. Okay? So turn back to 1 Peter chapter 2, and I'm going to read 1 through 3 and 9 through 11. Therefore lay aside all malice and deceit and hypocrisy and envy and evil speaking. As newborn babies, desire the pure milk of the word, that you may grow thereby, if indeed you've tasted that the Lord is gracious. Peter wrote that to these people living in the flush of the toilet. Okay, he doesn't stop there. Look down at verse 9. But you are a chosen generation. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. You are his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness. You used to like living in the toilet, and you don't like it anymore. You've been called out of the darkness into the marvelous light. You were once not a people, but you're now the people of God. You hadn't obtained mercy, verse 10, but now you have obtained mercy. Look at verse 11. Beloved. Now this is the Apostle Peter. How would you like to get a letter from Peter? Well, you did. Here it is. But how would you like to back then have gotten one when he was alive? Well, he's still alive, right? But he was there. How would you like to get a letter where he says, look at verse 11, I beg you. Peter said, hey, I've been through this myself. I've been tempted. I've been around evil. I've walked through wickedness. I beg you, as sojourners, remember, this world is not my home. I'm on my way somewhere else. As pilgrims, as people that are headed somewhere else, but temporarily they're walking through this area. That's what we are. Abstain, verse 11, from fleshly lusts. Why? Well, the next Greek word, look it up in your Logos. It's a great word, stratuantai, which war. You know what that word is? It's carry on a campaign like terrorists or like guerrilla warfare, like we're watching in the Ukraine. I mean, yesterday, I don't know how much you guys, if you're studying, you probably don't have time to watch all this, but a Ukrainian tank got in the city that was being attacked by the Russians, and it drove until its turret could point that way and shoot between all the buildings, and between the buildings they had a straight shot there, and between the buildings. And so this tank was totally hidden to the Russian forces as they were coming through town, but the convoy would come through and it would be visible briefly between those buildings, those buildings, those buildings, and those buildings. And that one tank took out the convoy because as soon as they all got between the buildings, it went and hit the first one, which stopped the convoy. Then the next one was between the building, got that one. And there's a drone video of one tank stopping a whole convoy. You know what that's called? Guerrilla warfare, where they don't see where you are. You're not fighting them on the open field, you're hiding. Look at what it says in verse 15. Fleshly lusts are stratuantying against your soul. Satan knows what he can do to deflate your spiritual life, to make you or me grieve the Holy Spirit so much that he becomes sabeomai, quenched. The water thrown on him. Wow. So they had to choose whether to serve Christ every day.